Imagine waking up one morning and realizing gravity just stopped working, or walking through a wall like it was made of fog, or meeting a perfect duplicate of yourself who knows everything you know. Sounds like science fiction. It's not. These are real documented cases that have left scientists scratching their heads for decades. Today, we're diving into 10 bizarre scientific mysteries that hint our universe might not be as solid as we think. They're backed by eyewitnesses' photos, even official investigations. And the deeper you go, the more it starts to sound like the universe is running on code. That sometimes bugs out. So buckle up. From teleporting soldiers to floating islands, from time loops to reality resets, these are the glitches in the matrix that science still can't explain. The wall walker. You'd think scientists would know how impossible it is for someone to just teleport 9,000 miles away. But in 1593, a Spanish soldier named Gil Perez supposedly did just that. Here's what happened. Perez was standing guard at the governor's palace in Manila, Philippines, when he blinked and suddenly found himself in Mexico City's Plaza Mayor, still wearing his Manila-issued uniform and musket. Dozens of people saw him appear out of thin air, dazed but alive. When questioned, he insisted he hadn't moved, the world had. The Spanish Inquisition later investigated, and when a ship finally arrived from Manila, months later, everything Perez said checked out. The governor really had been assassinated the same day Perez vanished. Even the smallest details matched. The church ruled it supernatural, but modern theorists have other ideas. Some physicists suggest Perez's case could hint at quantum tunneling, the bizarre phenomenon where particles pass through barriers they shouldn't. It's like the universe momentarily forgot where Perez was supposed to be and copy-pasted him to another location. The coordinates of Manila and Mexico City even align along a near-perfect Great Circle path, the kind you'd use for global navigation. In a way, it's as if the universe executed a cut-and-paste command across the Pacific. One second he was in Manila's reality file, the next his data loaded in Mexico City. And if that sounds too wild, remember this. Scientists at Fermilab recently discovered neutrinos that can seemingly jump between locations faster than light, allows an eerie echo of Perez's experience centuries earlier. Maybe he wasn't crazy. Maybe he just walked through a glitch in reality's code. And if that's possible, what else might slip through the cracks of existence? Because in 1969, a small town in New Mexico experienced a glitch of its own, not in space, but in one of the most fundamental forces of the universe, gravity itself. The gravity holiday. You know how we take gravity for granted? It's literally the reason your coffee stays in the cup and not on the ceiling. But for 17 strange minutes in Taos, New Mexico on August 4, 1969, gravity decided to take a break. At exactly 10:47 a.m., locals noticed something was wrong. Laundry floated upward. Children bounced into the air like astronauts on the moon. Cars had to be tied down to keep from drifting away. For those 17 minutes, Taos wasn't part of Earth. It was something else entirely. Physicist Dr. Richard Morrison, who happened to be visiting, tried to measure what was happening. His experiments showed that gravity hadn't vanished completely. It had just weakened to around 15% of its normal strength. Think of it as if someone turned the gravity slider down in a simulation. Even stranger television crews caught it all on film. You can still see floating papers, drifting cameras, and a reporter trying to keep her feet on the ground as she interviews a terrified archaeologist. When normal gravity suddenly returned, every floating object and person came crashing down in a deafening wave of chaos. No known geological or magnetic anomaly could explain it. Official reports blamed mass hysteria, but physics doesn't hallucinate. The Taos gravity holiday, as locals called it, was a controlled anomaly, a perfect circle, 2 miles wide, lasting exactly 17 minutes. The kind of precision you'd expect not from nature, but from a system setting. Here's where modern science adds another layer. In 2016, data from NASA's GRACE satellites, which measure Earth's gravitational field, revealed microscale gravity fluctuations that move across the planet like waves. Most are tiny, but what if one spiked? For a few minutes in one small town, gravity might have really gone soft. If true, that means gravity isn't constant, it's adjustable. And if the universe can flick its most fundamental law on and off like a switch, it raises a bigger question: who's doing the switching? Because our next story doesn't bend gravity, it bends time itself. The loop day. We all have days that feel like they never end. But for Jennifer Kumar, that was literally true. On March 15, 2011, she lived the same Tuesday 47 times. 7 times in a row. Every morning at 6:23 a.m. the alarm clock buzzed. Every night she went to sleep at 11:59 p.m., only to wake up again at 6:23 a.m. on that same Tuesday. At first, Jennifer thought she was losing her mind. But then she realized she could predict everything: the songs on the radio, random accidents, her co-workers' jokes. She wasn't imagining it. She was trapped in a perfect time loop. By the 12th loop, she began experimenting, calling the police to warn about a car crash before it happened. When her warning turned out to be true, she caught the attention of Dr. Sarah Chen, a physics professor who helped her test what was happening. Together, they recorded consistent, measurable anomalies timestamps that reset in local servers, digital clocks, desynchronizing, and electromagnetic readings that flickered every 24 hours. Then things got even weirder. Jennifer learned she could stretch time inside the loop. By focusing, she made a 30-minute lunch feel like hours while the outside clock barely moved. Her consciousness, somehow detached from the loop, could alter its flow. If that sounds like science fiction, here's where real physics joins in. Researchers at MIT have simulated closed time-like curves loops predicted by Einstein's relativity equations, where time can literally fold back on itself under extreme conditions. In one experiment, quantum particles remembered previous states as if learning from their past runs. Jennifer's brain might have done something similar, acting as a kind of organic quantum recorder, carrying memory through temporal resets. By loop number 45, she met another loop survivor named Frank Rodriguez. Together, they discovered that each cycle's boundary expanded, trapping more people, as if time itself was spreading like a virus. On the 47th loop, they somehow broke it, performing a precise sequence of actions that reset reality. The next day finally came. If that's true, it means time isn't just a river, it's rewritable code. And if time can loop, maybe people can too. Because what happened in a quiet town in Illinois in 2003 makes the concept of copy and paste terrifyingly real. The duplicate people. You've probably heard the word doppelganger, but what happened in Millbrook, Illinois in 2003 made that idea feel painfully literal. Residents began encountering perfect duplicates of themselves, not twins, not illusions, but exact copies who thought, spoke, and acted exactly like the originals. It started when librarian Rebecca Martinez saw herself walk by the library window. Thinking it was a reflection, she stepped outside, only to find her double calmly shelving books inside. The copy looked up, smiled, and continued working, seemingly unaware that anything unusual was happening. Soon the entire town was caught in the same paradox. People met themselves at grocery stores, at gas stations, even in their own homes. Every duplicate had the same scars, fingerprints, memories, and DNA. Scientists confirmed they were made of real matter, not projections or holograms. But when separated from their originals by more than half a kilometer, both versions experienced dizziness and fragmented memories, as if their identities were tethered by some invisible thread. And here's where it gets truly uncanny: every action was mirrored with a 4.7-second delay. If Rebecca lifted her right arm, her copy did the same 4.7 seconds later. Surveillance cameras revealed a horrifying pattern: the duplicates appeared exactly where their originals had been 24 hours earlier. It was like the universe accidentally played back yesterday's version of the town. Some researchers have speculated this could be a temporal caching error, similar to how computers save older versions of data for quick access. Others suggest a quantum explanation, that our world constantly overlaps with near-identical versions of itself. And for 6 days in Millbrook, those realities briefly synced. What's wild is that in 2019, scientists at the University of Vienna performed quantum experiments where entangled particles copied each other's states, even after separation, like ghost twins repeating each other's moves across time. Maybe what happened in Millbrook wasn't a haunting. Maybe it was a glimpse of the universe's backup system accidentally double-loading the same people. And just when you think reality couldn't get stranger, imagine looking out your plane window and seeing an entire island floating in the sky. The floating island. On September 23, 1997, passengers aboard Flight 447 from Seattle to Los Angeles witnessed something that broke the laws of physics and maybe reality itself. Captain David Chen and his crew saw what looked like an entire island, complete with forests, villages, and moving people floating 30,000 feet in the air. The island cast a shadow on the clouds below. Passengers took photos and video showing roads, smoke from chimneys, and what looked like medieval-style houses. Some swore they saw people pointing up at the plane and even waving. Yet air traffic control's radar saw nothing. No blip, no object, just open sky. As the plane got closer, the navigation system glitched. Instruments began reporting impossible readings, showing the aircraft at multiple altitudes at once. Then, as quickly as it appeared, the island vanished. Gone. The sky was empty again. The FAA classified the footage, but later analyses confirmed the images weren't edited. So what could cause this optical illusion, mass hallucination? Hard to believe considering radar failure and consistent eyewitness data. Here's a theory scientists now take more seriously. Atmospheric mirages or superior mirages created by light bending across layers of air with different temperatures. In the Arctic, ships have been seen floating upside down in the sky, a real measurable phenomenon. But no known mirage can project an entire moving landmass with realistic lighting and motion. That's where newer physics comes in. NASA atmospheric physicist Dr. Ellen Stokes proposed that a rare interaction between electromagnetic fields and gravity waves could create temporary spatial overlays like stacked images of reality bleeding through each other. Imagine multiple simulations running simultaneously and one briefly rendering over ours. If that's true, maybe Captain Chen didn't see a floating island at all, but another world's reflection accidentally projected into ours. And if matter can phase in and out of visibility, that brings us to the next phenomenon, one that happened in plain sight in one of the busiest buildings on Earth. Because in 2005, a man named John Stevenson didn't just see through a wall, he walked through it. The Phase Walker. New York's Grand Central Terminal has seen everything. But on December 14, 2005, it saw something reality itself shouldn't allow. John Stevenson, an ordinary commuter, was walking across the main concourse when dozens of witnesses watched him pass directly through a solid marble pillar. He didn't bump into it or vanish behind it. He phased through it, emerging calmly on the other side. Security cameras caught the whole thing from multiple angles, and experts confirmed there was no editing, no visual trickery. Stevenson later said it felt like walking through thick gelatin. He could see inside the pillar, the rebar, the concrete, as if it were transparent. When police approached, he was solid breathing and utterly terrified. Medical scans later showed nothing unusual, but electromagnetic detectors recorded faint energy pulses around his body for hours afterward. So what actually happened? Physicists who reviewed the footage noted a key detail: for exactly 2.3 seconds, Stevenson and the marble appeared to share the same space. That breaks the Pauli exclusion principle, one of the bedrock laws of matter. Two solid objects can't occupy the same coordinates. Yet here it was caught on video. One possibility lies in quantum tunneling, the same principle behind how particles sometimes jump through barriers they shouldn't. At the subatomic level, matter isn't solid, it's probability. If Stevenson's atomic field briefly lost coherence, even for a fraction of a second, his atoms could have slipped through the spaces between the marble's atoms. Sound impossible? Scientists at the University of Tokyo recently used quantum simulation to make entire clusters of particles disappear through artificial barriers. The difference between an electron doing that and a 6-foot man doing it is scale, not physics. And here's the kicker: maintenance workers later reported that the same pillar had been acting weird for weeks. Tools magnetized near it, and sensors picked up unexplained EM pulses as if the structure itself were glitching. Maybe Stevenson didn't defy matter. Maybe matter for a moment forgot how to behave. And if reality can forget, it can also remember, which brings us to a small Iowa town that woke up one morning to find its entire existence had been rewound. The Reset Town. At exactly 3:17 a.m. on November 8, 2012, the town of Cedar Falls, Iowa, experienced what can only be described as a full-scale reality reboot. When morning came, everything, buildings, streets, even digital files, had reverted to the exact state they had been in 24 hours earlier. The first clue came from the night staff at the local hospital. A wing that had been demolished the day before was suddenly standing again, fully intact, with lights on patient records restored and even the same coffee stains on the nurse's desk. Across town, construction sites where undone cars reappeared in yesterday's parking spots, and a woman who had painted her house green woke to find it blue again, complete with the same faded scratches as before. City records confirmed it wasn't just physical. Computers, bank transactions, and phone logs had all rolled back exactly one day. Files created on November 7th were gone. Older versions had overwritten everything at precisely 3:17 a.m. It was as if the universe had hit Ctrl+Z on the entire town. Physicist Dr. Jennifer Walsh from the University of Iowa led the investigation and made a stunning observation. The boundary of the reset was perfectly defined. Only what lay within the city limits reverted not a foot more. She described it as a localized rollback, like a video game loading a saved checkpoint. Her classified report theorized that reality might maintain temporal backups, a kind of space-time memory that occasionally restores itself to maintain stability after minor corruptions. In other words, the universe might keep save files. Sound ridiculous maybe, But in 2020, cosmologists at MIT and CERN discovered that quantum fields can spontaneously collapse and reset to earlier states to correct entropy errors. It's rare but mathematically possible, a phenomenon they call quantum state reversion. So maybe Cedar Falls didn't experience a miracle. Maybe it was a system restore. And if reality can roll itself back, it can also fail to render properly. Because 6 years earlier in California, part of a city literally glitched into wireframe mode. The rendering error. It started as a normal afternoon in Bakersfield, California on April 22, 2008, until reality itself began to look unfinished. Around 2:30 p.m., witnesses near the Kern County Museum noticed something bizarre. Buildings and streets were turning transparent, their surfaces replaced by glowing geometric outlines, as if the world had switched to a 3D modeling view. Photographer Alex Chen captured images showing cars' walls and people flickering between solid form and wireframe, every beampipe and skeleton rendered in light blue lines. The phenomenon spread across 4 downtown blocks. People could still touch and use everything. Doors opened, cars drove. But visually, it was as if someone had turned off the textures in a simulation. Even stranger, the glitch moved outward in expanding rings, then stopped abruptly, 47 minutes later, snapping everything back to normal in an instant. Dr. Robert Kim, a computer graphics expert at UC Berkeley, studied the photos and noticed something chilling. The geometric patterns perfectly matched 3D rendering conventions used in modern graphics engines. Every object was structured like a mathematical model, complete with vertex grids and polygonal symmetry. It's as if Kim said, "We glimpsed the source code of reality." Some dismissed it as mass hallucination, but physical instruments disagreed. Magnetic field sensors recorded rhythmic pulses, and GPS data from drones showed momentary spatial distortion, distances stretching and contracting by fractions of a meter, exactly as you'd expect in a rendering delay. There's even a precedent in physics. Scientists studying quantum decoherence at Oxford found that particles sometimes lose their properties, temporarily reverting to abstract probability states before reconstituting. If matter behaves like information at the quantum level, then the Bakersfield incident might have been reality's equivalent of a graphics lag. And here's what's truly unnerving people. Inside, the glitch said, they could see extra structures, shapes embedded in walls and even inside their own bodies that don't exist anatomically. Hidden geometry, almost as if the simulation briefly showed its underlying framework, like a game revealing debug mode. But if that was a rendering issue, what happens when the system decides to delete instead? Because in 2016, that's exactly what seemed to happen inside a shopping mall in Arizona. The Despawn Event. On July 7, 2016, shoppers at the Riverside Mall in Phoenix, Arizona, witnessed something straight out of a digital apocalypse. At 11:43 a.m., merchandise began disappearing, not stolen, not broken, but quietly fading out of existence. One moment there were tables, chairs, and racks of clothing. The next, they were gone. Security guard Robert Martinez described it as watching reality delete itself. Objects dissolved from the edges inward, leaving smooth, blank space behind, like graphics being erased frame by frame. At first, only decorations vanished: posters, planters, display signs. Then the effect moved to furniture walls and finally people. Eyewitnesses saw entire groups blink out mid-conversation. Stranger still, after the event, no one remembered them. Even family members of those who vanished had no recollection they'd existed. Security footage confirmed gaps in the recording's empty space where people had been seconds earlier. The phenomenon lasted until 2:17 p.m. and affected roughly 40% of the mall's contents. When it ended, everything looked structurally intact, just emptier. Floors where fountains had stood were now flawless tile, as if the fountains had never been there. Store layouts subtly rearranged themselves to maintain balance, almost like the system automatically re-optimized the environment. Physicist Dr. Angela Foster compared the disappearance sequence to memory management in computer systems where non-essential assets are unloaded to free up processing power. Objects disappeared in grid-like chunks, just like data blocks. And the kicker: the mall's inventory and accounting systems updated themselves. Databases erased records of the missing merchandise. Insurance and supplier logs adjusted automatically to reflect the new reality. No trace remained, as if the system had rewritten history. Could the universe actually delete its own files to preserve efficiency? Theoretical physicists have a concept called vacuum decay, where regions of spacetime can spontaneously reconfigure into lower energy states, effectively erasing matter in that area. It's a rare event, but in simulations it behaves eerily like despawning. If that's the case, the Riverside Mall might have been a test. run a localized patch cleaning up corrupted data in the universe's operating system. And yet even after everything we've seen, teleporting soldiers, time loops, floating islands, and wireframe cities, one last glitch may be the most unsettling of all. Because in 2019, an entire town's people didn't vanish, they just stopped being people. The NPC Glitch. On March 3, 2019, the city of Burlington, Vermont, suddenly started behaving like a broken video game. Around 200 residents began repeating the same movements, words, and routines perfectly on loop. College student Emma Rodriguez was the first to notice. The man who checked his watch on the same street corner every 12 minutes. The woman who circled the same shop window saying, "Nice dress, maybe next week," every single time. The elderly man scattering breadcrumbs to pigeons in the exact same rhythm, using the exact same hand motions for hours. At first it seemed like mass hypnosis until people realized the loops were synchronized. When Emma filmed them, she saw something chilling. Every affected person paused, turned and reset in unison, like characters respawning on cue. Dr. Sarah Chen, a behavioral psychologist, joined the investigation. Brain scans showed something never before seen in human physiology. The NPCs shared identical neural rhythms, as if one signal was controlling them all. Conversations with them felt scripted. When shown video of their behavior, they responded mechanically. "I'm just going about my day." No emotion, no comprehension. After 6 days, the loops stopped. Everyone returned to normal with zero memory of the glitch. Chen's follow-up scans revealed their brainwaves had desynchronized again. But the identical rhythm patterns during the event matched a frequency scientists have recorded in AI training models during synchronization phases. In 2021, researchers at the University of Sussex proposed that human consciousness might work like a distributed network, individual minds processing data that sync to maintain social order. If that system lagged, temporarily offloading higher awareness, what we'd see could look exactly like Burlington's NPC event autopilot, humans running on safe mode. Even creepier, similar NPC episodes have since been quietly reported in other college towns, always lasting 6 days. Always affecting roughly the same number of people. Some think it's electromagnetic resonance. Others whisper it's a system-wide patch and update to the human program. If these 10 cases tell us anything, it's that when reality breaks, it does so with patterns, precision, rules. And those rules might not be physics, but code. So what do teleporting soldiers, levitating towns, and wireframe cities all have in common? They don't just break physics, they hint that physics might be running on something deeper. Something programmable. We've seen Gil Perez blink across oceans like a misplaced file. Taos, New Mexico experience a gravity holiday as if the laws of physics went offline for maintenance. Jennifer Kumar lived the same day 47 times, a perfect time loop that felt less like divine intervention and more like a stuck clock in a simulation. Then there were the duplicate people of Illinois, like cached copies of themselves, and the floating island that behaved like a rendering from another dimension. A man walked through solid marble as if the molecules temporarily lost collision detection. A whole town reset itself to a previous state, while another city glitched into wireframe, revealing the geometry beneath the world. And when reality wanted to clean up space, it simply despawned what it no longer needed, while elsewhere humans themselves became scripted NPCs. If you zoom out, these anomalies paint a single disturbing picture. Reality behaves like software. Each glitch, teleportation, looping, duplication, resetting, despawning mirrors. Known computing processes, copying, buffering, reloading, deleting. But maybe that's not terrifying. Maybe it's humbling. Because the more science advances, the more it points toward a universe built on information. Physicists like John Archibald Wheeler believed it decades ago. "It from bit," he said. Everything that exists might come from a cosmic yes or no decision, a bit of data flickering into being. If that's true, then every mystery we've explored, every weird, impossible, perfectly documented anomaly might not be a glitch at all. Maybe it's just the universe showing us its code. And maybe the beauty of science isn't in solving these mysteries, but in having the courage to keep asking better questions. So tell me, which of these 10 glitches messed with your sense of reality the most? Was it the man who walked through a wall, or the town that reset itself overnight? If you love stories that challenge what we think we know about existence, hit subscribe. Because in this universe, the only thing stranger than the truth is how often we mistake it for normal.